2026 Bay City ISD district calendar. All right.
All right, so based on the board's wishes to try to do a little bit more for our staff, we came up with several models for 25-26. For 24-25, since it's so late in the year, the only thing that we're able to do is to add one comp day for the 23rd. That's the graduation. So that's the model that you see before you is in the board book, and that's the only difference. So any discussion about that piece?
It's just to give them the option, correct? So they can keep it as, or they can do it as a comp day if they have hours, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Just a motion for each calendar year?
I think we can do it in one, or we can do it separate if you want. You can make a motion.
I want a motion to amend the 2024-2025 calendar as presented in the board.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any conversation? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right, on to the 2025-2026.
Okay, so what we looked at is adding 2 additional comp days to the existing approved 25-26 calendar. But then there's several models, but I'm going to take you all the way to the 3rd model, which I think has the most in it. And so we added 2 comp days to that. And then we also did an earlier day, so we get up a day earlier at Christmas. We would start school 1 day earlier, and then we added what was the other piece that we did? Disclosure.
I'm trying to pull that, but it was the 3-6 and the 5/22 were changed.
That's right.
So added a holiday the 19th.
Fair Week, we added a professional development day on
Yes.
the 5th, that Thursday.
Yes.
So that would allow those that are involved with that to work with their principals to get out for that piece as well.
Are there any questions or comments about that option for 25-26?
Only question I had, the rationale or the reasoning behind testing during Fair Week is just because it fell that week, or do we like it that week, or is that something that we should think about?
You talk about benchmarks.
Yeah.
I know that's definitely something our campus has already looked at revising for next year.
I can't imagine attendance is great in general. I think I'm a little better with Thursday and Friday being off, but we can visit that. I mean, y'all can visit that.
Yeah, no, the
For the summer, but
I have a question about this comp time though. Okay, so for example, if we're adding the comp time that just passed for this coming school year, so this past summer, they were only allowed to have 2 days that they submitted for that. So how does that work?
So if they have another one, they can submit it for it. So you know how it was 2, we're saying that it could be 3, right, for this year. And then next year, they can go up to 4.
But what my thing is, so most of them only took 2 days, 99% are took 2 days, so I'm just saying this isn't gonna, I'm just warning you that this is not going to be.
it's not ground
Because
shaking.
it's so late. They
No,
don't
it's
have
not at all,
any
because
time.
it's always been, the expectation is you have 2 days, so they only take those 2 days, they're not gonna, they don't do, rightfully so, they do their 2, and they do the same thing. Now, if we're gonna give them these extra comp days next year, and I'm just asking the questions now, so if we're gonna give them 4 comp days next year, so now they have to do 4 days during the summer.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be in the summer, it's when they're not on contract, so it can be weekend, whatever you approve, but it can't be while they're supposed to be at work. So if they go to professional development, that's during the school day or when they're supposed to be at work, it wouldn't count, right? But it's up to the principal, you know, if it's tied to the campus improvement plan and to the campus goals and those kind of things, then if it's on the weekend or after hours, it may be a series of things that they're doing online, all of that counts towards it. So there's a lot of flexibility within that, as long as the campus principal approves of that and they're not doing it while they're paid to be at work.
Yeah, something that was eye-opening to me was understanding the calendars and the difference between the minutes that the kids have to be in school and then the days that teachers are in school. They're on a 187-day contract, so it's 187 days, whether it's you work 4 more in the summer and then you work 4 less during the year, it's still 187. There's just some flexibility there.
And I know that there's some things that Ms. Mosier's got going on the campus where they're going to be able to pick up some additional at this time. That's why we want to go ahead and do that. If the principals have some things, you know, for instance, we will talk on Tuesday about the House Bill 900 library and that classroom library is now considered as part of the main library, and they're gonna have to catalog all that at some point. So if they're spending additional time doing that, perhaps after school, the principals, if they so choose to, they can count those towards them earning that. It's up to you and how you want to do that. As long as it makes sense and it's outside of the workday, then you've got some flexibility to try to bridge this gap with it being so late.
Am I allowed to ask what that's or?
Absolutely.
Okay. So with the options that are available for 25, 26, how were those developed? Because besides the one that's already been approved, what were the additional options? How were those developed? Like you said, you went to option
looking at-
3. Who devised those plans?
Right, so, me and Ms. Mosier and Ms. Crosskoff tried to come up with ways that we could add additional days to it without, going below the 187-day contract. And those are the only options that we come up with.
Okay, so it's basically not, he's just switching what the days look like. So I mean, if 4 comp days, there's still like, so Skyrim said, it's still 187, it's just what that 187 looks like.
Right, yeah, because once you start getting below 187, then they're not working the number of days that are on the contract.
Okay, so just so I have, because I know I have a lot of questions asked of me. So it's still staying the same 25, 26 calendar, but probably just the change of the comp days?
And moving the one day,
Yeah,
one
so.
day earlier, starting one day earlier than.
Right,
So instead of starting on Wednesday, we'll start on Tuesday, and we swap that out so everybody can get out a day earlier
okay.
for Christmas.
And I know there are a lot of people talking about a possibility of maybe looking into a 4-day calendar, and that's off the board, correct?
So I think
This
for
year
that,
it is.
yeah, so
We're too close into the new year to. make
with
that.
the time of year it is, that's why we brought the calendar back to try to have some discussions. And I know it's not groundbreaking and earth shattering what we're kind of able to do this year, but since the wheels have been set in motion and things are moving down the track in a good ways, especially at our 2 junior high and high school campuses with planning and with scheduling and that type of thing, the board, I think, and me, is I will say for myself, looking at a 4-day work week, I want to look into it, but I don't know if it would be necessarily the best option for 25, 26, because so many things are moving already. So I would like to see the board, if the board is willing to have a conversation in the early fall of, let's look at it, let's see what the data is showing, let's look at that type of information and have a real educated conversation, because I think trying to switch, I'm trying to put myself in the perspective of principals and then teachers and trying to switch to a 4-day at this point when I know there's a lot of work that's already been done for 25, 26 school year. I wonder if it would cause more disruption than good at this point. And I don't know, that's one of the questions that I've asked Mr. Townsend, and I don't know if that would be wise, in my opinion, to move in that direction at this point in May for a school year that starts in 4 months.
One of the big challenges about the 4-day calendar is not only the days of contract, figure out how you do that, but also, with us implementing HQIM next year, at all of the elementary grade levels for RLA, the way that they have it mapped out right now, there's no wiggle room at all with those number of days to be able to cover the content. And the other piece is we received the grant to support the implementation of that. And so if we were to knock off a whole day out of the week, even if we were to extend like the school day a little bit, we still would not meet the required number of minutes that are required in the grant for how long they have to teach during that week. And then they wouldn't be able to have enough time to cover all of the content. So there's just not enough time right now to wrestle that bear and then figure out what that looks like with that curriculum. That's a big piece for me. And they've already started working on that, and to have a huge lift right now because they're having to develop the scope and sequence, the timeline of it, right? And so it's tight. Like it's double the amount of testing in those classrooms with that HQIM, not large formal testing, but so there's just no way for us to be able to implement that and make all those changes right now at this late time. It's really going to have to be a long concerted effort to make sure that we're looking at everything, so that if we do go down that road, we've got all our bases covered and we know that we're going to be able to be successful.
And so then that next calendar process, can we make sure that all the campus principals are involved in that?
So in the fall, remember when we went to January, you guys were in charge of bringing that from your campus, right?
No, actually not really, because we did it at a principals meeting. We took the current or the previous year's calendar and we edited it right at that principals meeting.
Based on the feedback that you were supposed to bring from the campus.
Right, but I mean, that was that conversation for this current year's calendar. For next year's calendar, because I know you brought forth additional calendars.
Right, under the time constraints.
Okay, because I thought we were the first, we got an email saying that we were gonna all be involved in developing or having that conversation, so I just wanted to have clarity. That the conversation to open up for the 25-26 calendar again, the upcoming calendar, that email went out that there would include this campus principals in that conversation.
Okay.
So I thought I'm just making sure that we can do that for the next one.
Yes, just like we were when you developed the first one. Yes, ma'am.
And I know it's not, like I said, moving mountains, but we're trying to work within the means of what we have at this moment and give options. I think that's, for me, the biggest thing is I want to be able to provide options for the staff. Yes, it's not a huge change and it's not something that everyone's gonna maybe not be super excited about or be on board, but it's options for people to have the decision of, hey, I'm gonna do this and then I'm gonna get to have these days off or whatever that looks like. But instead of locking them in, to just have some choice in that at this point.
But let me say this for a
yeah.
minute. You know, thinking about the reason that we rushed this was really for the 24-25.
Yes.
Okay, so that piece, there's not much you can do other than add a comp day. So you are right, we did rush that piece. We don't have to approve 25, 26 right now. And so if we want to allow the principals to have some more time with their people at the campuses, and then make some suggestions, and then you guys can come together as a group after you get that from your site-based decision-making committee, then we can absolutely do that because we don't have to make the revisions right now. However, I would caution you that we do not want to take too long because we're going to have to readjust the UI eligibility calendar and get Mr. Cousins to sign off on that. All of the grading periods may shift some depending on what the outcome is. All of those are set up in Skyward for our report cards. I've already given those to Ms. Hartnett to be able to set up. So we don't want to wait too long, but you guys can absolutely go back and do that and have those meetings at your campus, and we can set a deadline for us to come back together with those suggestions and then meld them all into one calendar for something that you know would be more reflective if you feel that would be best.
Yeah, y'all tell us what you want. You gotta work 187 days. Tell us where they are.
I mean, is May 20th the next meeting? Is that too soon or is that enough time to?
I think we can do that.
Is
Yeah,
that
principals,
for
can y'all have
principals
a meeting with input and then come back together before, so that we can have it in time for May 20th? It would need to be, you know, we can have it on the agenda and then, well, that's next week, it would be no time.
Well, for them to discuss it, well, maybe not get feedback.
Yeah, they need to get the feedback from the campus and then, and you're right, Ms. Cummings, now that I think about it, with everything that's been on my plate, I did rush it, did think about the fact that we could separate these two, didn't have to have them all at once, and give you guys a chance to do that, and that's my bad, I'm sorry.
Then we made a separate motion.
Would we still be
Yeah,
operating?
good thing we made a separate motion.
Yeah.
Good thing.
We would still be operating though with the idea of a 5-day week, 187 days, and the same number of minutes.
At this point, yes, because there's just not enough time for us to be able to nail down all those other details, especially with the HQIM. Yeah, just figuring out how the district is going to fund the teachers not working for the number of days in the contract is something that we've got to look into, and how the districts are doing that. That's going to take time, not to mention looking at the way that things are panned out for the HQIM, that there's no way to fit that in. So there might be a way, but we need time, right? So the 4-day week would be off the table for this year that we're looking at right now. Because so many plans have already been put in place for next year, because that starts way back in February. So Yeah, it would be under the current parameters.
Did someone do a hybrid one where they, either 1 or 2 days a week it was teachers in, but kids not, or something like that? Maybe that's how they got
There has been-
187 days in.
Yes, there has been some hybrid models, and that's why I think there's so many different models out there that spending the time now between, once the budget's passed, getting some things in order to be able to have that full conversation of here's the data, here's the options, here are the different things that people are trying, because everybody's doing it differently. Some districts I know are doing it as a test for a year to see, and they've let the community get in and vote on it. Different things like that, but I think in order for the school district to change for 25, 26 to that model, I just don't know, for me, I don't know if I'm on board to make that big shift in this time frame.
Well, we would need time to do polling.
Yeah.
So teachers and parents.
Parents. It'll be a big shift for the community as well, if that's the way we choose
Right, it's good
to
to
take
take home.
it, right? So do we want to table 25, 26?
Yeah.
So we'll table 25, 26, and then plan to discuss it at the May 20th regular board meeting, so we can have that conversation and y'all can get feedback from your campuses, and then if y'all want to get together, however y'all want to do that, and then we'll just be ready to have a conversation and information at that point.
Sounds good.
All right, reports. Item A, discuss details of the ADA retention incentive stipend to formulate a resolution for May 20th regular board meeting.
So in the fall, the board approved that we would be doing a attendance retention incentive stipend based on our attendance. And so if we were able to meet, improve by 1 full percentage point, that we would do a one-time $500 incentive for retention stipend payout. So we're getting close to the end of the year, and I want to make sure that we nail down some details, so we get a resolution together for the May 20th board meeting, and then we will know probably 3 days or so after school is complete, after any corrections or errors are made. We want to make sure that our attendance is accurate, whether or not we have met that threshold of 93.5%, which would be a full percentage point. So I've got the resolution mostly done, but there are a couple of details that we want to iron out. We want to make sure when we're talking about all employees, last time we did this, it was all employees, including subs. Are we still doing that, including the subs? And if so, is it subs that, all subs, or is it those that haven't worked in the classroom at least 50% of the school year? Like a long-term sub position or, something like that, to have had an effect on the overall ADA with the students. It's at the board's discretion on how you guys want to do that. We just need to nail it down. Like I said, the first time we did everybody, every sub, every person that was on the payroll got it. So it would be, do we want to do all employees, including subs, or not including subs?
But a sub might work 1 day in the year and they might work 10.
Right.
I think it's gotta be long-term subs.
Okay, and so then what we thought of as a suggestion to the board is if a sub was in the classroom 50% of the school year, then they would receive the stipend because they would have been in the classroom enough to maybe have an effect on that overall ADA with their students. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
I guess I'm confused because it's almost like a sub is a contract. Because it's gonna be a retention incentive, so it's those teachers that are coming back next year, and then we had the conversation, well, what if they retire? And we said, well, we can include the ones that retire, because they're not leaving, going somewhere else, quitting or whatever.
Right.
And so how can you look at a sub work, and are they on contract, are they coming back the next year, are they on payroll, are they W-2 employees?
No, and that's a really good discussion, and one of the things that we talk about is when you talk about subs,
W-2s.
when you talk about subs are there's a shortage, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard for us to have subs, so
So we want to bring it back.
we do, we want them to stay on the sub rosters.
Okay.
So if we feel that they have been in the classroom long enough to have a positive effect along with everybody else in this attendance piece, then it would make sense if the board decided to reward them. It would be outside of the scope of what their job is and what they're doing and the potential for them to have had it. So they can be considered. I would think that if you're just 1 or 2 days and you're intermittent.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I agree with the intention that they're coming back. They haven't already submitted the resignation or they haven't quit or.
Right,
But
now,
they're coming back.
right, now,
They don't have a contract.
No, they don't.
yeah.
So how do you determine that piece of it?
I think you can. Coming back.
We still want to mark this.
So we can probably have them sign the same agreement that every employee is gonna have to sign. And the agreement is that if I leave the district before the first day of school, which is August 12th or 13th, depending on what we do, then I know that I will no longer have rights to that, it will be taken out of my paycheck, when I leave. Nobody can get the stipend, assuming that it's approved and the resolution passes, and we hit that minimum ADA. Nobody can get it unless they have turned in that by June 12th. So the subs can do the same. If they don't return, if they don't remain on the sub list, if they say that they're not gonna come back, we can hold them the same as we do with all of our other staff. Okay, so it's not like an official decision, but I want y'all's input when I hear this, so when it comes before you as a resolution, we don't have to table it again.
Yes, but just to be on the list, because they may not have any, at the beginning of the year, they may not have
Absolutely.
anything to do, right?
Yeah, I think that as long as they are active, right, on the sub list, and they haven't said, I don't want to sub anymore, then yes. I see some input, it's quite nice.
I mean, just because they're on the list doesn't mean they work for us.
No, but they had intentions to, and they had direct effect on
Yeah,
this year's.
I just think
ADA.
that you can't like make them say,
There's
Yeah,
gonna be
no.
some outliers.
I think of the ones that have really been long-term for us, they'll be back. And they have,
Yeah, absolutely.
And those are the ones I think we're looking at targeting.
Yeah.
some that I might not want to come back.
Oh,
But those are the ones that we're wanting to target, right?
Yes.
And so the ones that have been with us for longer.
Yeah, but the ones that don't want to come back, I don't want to come back.
oh,
Even if they get an incident.
Don't come back.
But,
So,
Mr. Johnson, the agreement that everyone's signing,
That's
so
right.
for example, if an employee doesn't wanna, tells you July 31st, they're not returning, then we would get that money back on their check, or, okay, you see that.
Anytime before the first day of school.
Okay, how do we do that with subs, when their last paycheck's gonna be, if they're working, their last paycheck will be June?
Those are details that we can work out.
Okay. Just wanted to,
Right. So really, we just need to know what's the wishes of the board on who's included.
50% rules.
Everybody agree with that?
is that say the 50%?
So I'll do the resolution like that, that'll go before the board for a final decision.
Okay, and then also, we can, with the resolution, just so everybody, we will have this beforehand in board book, and if there's something that somebody's, oh, wait, hold on, then we can always,
Tweak it before.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
have a conversation with you and
Yes, ma'am.
have some options.
Because I plan on having this done in the next week or two, so
Yeah.
we can have it available as soon as that's active.
Okay.
The other piece was, if we are including retirees as being eligible, because based on the wording, right now, it's, if you don't retire for any reason. And so what is the board's wishes on that? Do you want to include those that, the retirees? It is a retention incentive stipend. But the spirit of it was that, everybody working together to raise the district's ADA to attempt to get additional revenue to be able to fund a one-time payout, in lieu of the fact that we're in desperate times when it comes to state finances statewide. This was a potential avenue to be able to reward our staff, not reward, to compensate.
I think if we're in the spirit of, they've worked for a year to get us where we are, the work has been put in this last year. They were here, they were part of it. I think that that's my one opinion. I don't know where everyone else is.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they're retiring, they're not leaving for another, yeah. Which we can do more for.
Okay, then it was discussed, in the fall that it would be a one-time payout and it would be separate from the paycheck itself, the normal paycheck, so that, they see this is the stipend itself, it's not bundled in with anything else. Our goal would be to, have that paid out before the end of June.
Is that a heavy lift? To do a separate, I don't know anything about that.
Well, it has to be for the year.
And then withholding taxes and everything from the 500, I mean, it's income, they're gonna pay us whether they.
Yeah, no matter what,
Later now.
all of that is still has to come out. So they won't see 500, they'll see 500 minus whatever has to come out from the food, and all the normal deductions.
Then we'll talk about
If we all want to get in trouble.
So I've got everything I need on that.
Okay. Item B, discuss and the cancellation of flying electric buses, bus grant, and recommendations for diesel bus purchases according to the obsolescence.
So we received, Mr. Busick, you go ahead and come down, we received a notification, from the Lion, bus company who received electric bus grant through, that they will not be fulfilling their commitment on producing the buses due to tariffs. I think, Mr. Busick will probably tell you more accurately, but what I'll tell you is with that news, the team began to figure out, okay, what are our options? The first thing is that we had work that had begun with Hunton to prepare the site for the charging station. And so we immediately contacted Hunton and put a stop to that because we didn't want to go any further because we didn't have enough information. So based on the information that we have right now, there's no indication of whether we'll be able to switch to another electric bus company. Even if we were, that would take us beyond we might be waiting another year or two. This was a very long drawn out process to try to receive these. In the meantime, we have also gone past our obsolescence plan because last year we were supposed to, the year before, Mr. Busick, why don't you go ahead?
Last Friday, I received a phone call completely unofficial from a line representative, just looking at his outlook on where the company was. He was part of the US team. And he was informed that the entire US team was going away. With that, it kind of sparked a conversation of, well, I wouldn't expect them due to the impending tariffs, don't really know where we're at. Nothing official has come from Lion or the EPA on this, so we're kind of in limbo there. Like Mr. Thomas said, we immediately ceased everything we were doing to get ready to receive these buses. As he was mentioning about the obsolescence plan, we have a fleet of 10 or 12 vehicles that are 2006 and 2008 model buses that we're going to be shifted out once we receive those 10 electrics. With us not getting these 10 electrics as expected, those buses have to continue to run. There's actually 2 of those 12 that are sitting on our fence that currently do not run, and that we're going to be pushed out with these 10 electrics. So with that, obviously, we're in a predicament here. We're not going to expect these 10 anytime soon. We're not going to get the relief that we were expecting from these 10. There are some options going forward with our bond proceeds to try to help alleviate that stress on our buses and alleviate that aging and that reliability aspect. There's 2 used buses that are available for activity use, which cannot be used for route use. But they would be the first buses chosen to get students any sort of activity, whether that's athletics, band, fine arts, you name it, those will be the first 2 that are picked to send students on a activity route to allow our route buses to continue to pick up students from school or from home, get them back home, get them to school, and keep the mileage down on those route buses with these 2 activities. On top of that, an obsolescence plan, like I said, there's 10 or 12 buses that are at the end of their life. The best practice is to shift these buses out around around 20 to 25 years, we're right in between that mark. With the incurring maintenance costs and the large repairs that we have to do with those on turbos and things like that, engines, the price gets up there. So my recommendation is to get 2 activity buses if we can in this budget cycle, with the option or the outlook of getting 2 new buses for routes in the 25-26 budget cycle with bond proceeds.
The hunt work that's been done, that didn't cost us anything.
It does, and so,
Most of that has been material costs. There's been no physical work done to BCISD property yet, but obviously they have time spent in ordering material, prepping some of this. I think we're expecting close to $260,000 for material, labor, and getting the upgraded infrastructure. We'd be probably closer to around $90,000 to $100,000 instead. And speaking with Vince today, we had some of that allocated within the transportation budget to cover that. So we would still be within the framework with that reduction in price to cover it within the approved 24-25 budget.
we did some legwork, Vince and Mr. Boucher did do some legwork with our bond counsel. Vince did we could put that in board book, just the emails from them, supporting that, yes, we could use bond proceeds, if we needed to pay for the costs that we've already incurred with hunting. And that would be an allowable cost, but then we found that we do have some capacity within the budget that it was already budgeted in transportation to be able to cover those costs. And then so that leaves some capacity in the INS and wiggle room so that the board did decide to get back onto our obsolescence plan, which we are behind on, to purchase 2 new diesel buses. We don't have an exact quote yet, but I think
The 2 new diesels from Longhorn Bus Sales, each one would be about $155,000 apiece, so $310,000 for a total of 2 brand new route buses. And we're looking at $62,000 apiece for the activity buses.
So I think
about $124,000 for the activities.
So I think when we looked at it in the INS, we would have, if we did the 2 new activities and
the 2 news, we would be left with roughly $260,000 in INS bond proceeds.
And this is the bond proceeds that built the schools and stadium, so there's a buffer.
So that's interest generated from bond proceeds. And then that'll be sort of a fund if a chiller goes down, if the boiler goes down, that's where we could go, access those funds to replace that chiller or any other piece of equipment to enhance this.
so we wanted to get this to you ahead of time, so that when we come in on May, that you guys have information, you're able to process it. If you want more information in between now, it's still developing, we need to get solid quotes, there's other things, but we just wanted to put it on your mind so that, you have time to think about it, and then when we come back in May, you're aware the situation is not hitting you out of the blue, and maybe you might be in a position there where you want to make a movement either way. It appears that we really don't have a choice on getting some new buses.
So if we get to the May meeting and we say, okay, let's do 2 buses, then 2 activity buses, how long is that? Would we have those before next year?
Yes, ma'am.
Even if we said, okay, let's do 2 route buses, would those also be here before next year, or those are a process to order?
Yes, ma'am. So the 2 activities are sent on a lot, not with National Bus Sales. We would send a driver, somebody drive 2 drivers up there, drive those 2 buses back instead of paying for delivery charge. Those would definitely be here before the end of the budget cycle. The 2 new buses, it's about a 60 to 90 day window between the day we order to get, customized with lettering, making sure everything is ready to go for the route buses. So we would be on a timeline with the original timeline of the 10 electrics that were coming. I think the original timeline when I got here was expecting, last part of 2025, so third, 4th quarter of 25. So we'd be right in line with that.
Okay. I know you're saying activity buses would be getting from Oklahoma. is there a possibility to do route buses in the same manner, or do we have to do new?
There is potential for used route buses. There's one for roughly 70,000. That is a 2017 model, but it has close to 100,000 miles on it. So when you start getting up to that mileage area, that's when we start to see problems with the workings of the bus. There are some newer ones, but they're about 130,000 each, and they have 30 to 40,000 miles on them. So my thought is, if we're gonna spend 130, why not spend the extra 25,000, get 0 real miles on them, and we can get the extra years of use out of them. Because we typically put about 6,000 miles a year on our route buses.
And you said the life of those new buses are about how long?
The best practice recommendation from the federal government is to change these buses out on 20 to 25 years, but that's also dependent on mileage, so it could be sooner than that. But like I said, we're right in that window, coming up on 20 years of where our buses are, and that's the ones that are starting to give us the most rates. Incur the most repair costs.
Any questions?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Mr. Gomez, Mr. Russo, working really, really hard on this problem. Mr. Rawlings has helped a lot too, just trying to figure out the whole grant issue. So just want to thank them for all their hard work on that.
Yeah, that's a curveball. But thank y'all for just the update on that, and keeping us in a loop to where we can make a decision. Okay, any other questions? Great, last item is adjournment. Is there
Motion to adjourn.
is there a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 4-0 in 3:37. We'll adjourn this meeting. Thank y'all.